millions of women in this country are going to lose their health care access, not to abortion services, to basic family planning, mammograms.
Pause.
We do not have mammogram machines at our health centers, and we've never stated that we did.
What? It's almost like you don't even care that you're lying. It's almost as though you're a pathological sociopathic serial killer with babies. So before I get to John Oliver's recent video on crisis pregnancy centers, I have a question of the day. Are you pro-life or do you consider yourself pro-choice? Now, here's the case. If it's the case that you consider yourself pro-choice, and a lot of people do you still at this point kind of have to acknowledge that the pro-choice activists today are merely pro-abortion? Can we all kind of agree that it's just assumed you're on board with abortion, the kind of laws that you see from the DNC, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, you see in Colorado up to 26 weeks? I mean, it's gone a bit around the bend. It's hard to say it's pro-choice with the kind of messaging being pushed out. So John Oliver went on his show today, or not today, sorry, this weekend. This is his latest show, to take aim at volunteer crisis pregnancy centers. Now, if it sounds like it doesn't make sense, well, let's make sense of it.
But tonight, we're going to focus on the exact opposite of an abortion clinic, something called a crisis pregnancy centre. Facilities whose primary purpose is to talk women out of terminating a pregnancy. Something they don't often make that clear. Instead, running
like
friendly-looking ads like this.
Yeah, we're starting now.
Before you make the decision about a pregnancy that comes at a less than perfect time, get jelly on the belly. Come to Sunrise Women's Clinic, a clinic where our nurses specialize in early pregnancy
Give him that one. Doesn't matter. So hold on a second. I want to make it clear. You have problems with pro-life centers running friendly you find that deceptive? You find that deceptive as opposed to ads from the benign named Planned Parenthood?
We help you find the birth control that's best for you. Deliver life-saving preventive care like cancer screenings.
No, you don't.
And offer accurate information for your most personal moments, so you're prepared
We'll
for
get
your
into more
most
statistics
important
after this
decisions.
because almost everything...
It all happens here at Planned Parenthood. Every year, we offer trusted, affordable care to 2.7 million Americans. So you're empowered to take control of your biggest decisions and lead your healthiest life. Planned Parenthood. Care no matter what.
Unless you don't want to kill the baby.
That's true.
You got to admit, the left that has the branding down. Anything looks better. It's like, oh,
it's planned. Yeah, it's planned.
Would you like to watch a fetus being torn to pieces in 4K?
What you do is you suck up babies, you chop them up, saw them up, and then suck them down the tube. By the way, if we're going to talk about this, could easily be considered false advertising because it's called Planned Parenthood. It's not planned, and you're not a parent. If it's going to be honest advertising, it should be called, oh, wait, it's a kid. We don't want to be parents. Kill it, kill it, kill it, kill it. That should be the title of your ad. It's not planned. You're not a parent. Next clip.
One of the early pregnancy options that you won't get at Sunrise Women's Clinic is an abortion. But that can be hard to tell from their vague name and marketing. And that actually happens a lot with CPCs. Take the Centre for Pregnancy Choices. And it was founded by a woman named Barbara Beavers. Once you're inside her CPC, you will find that it is vehemently against any choice that is not carrying a pregnancy to term.
You're deceiving yourself. If you say you can kill your baby and it'd be good for you, that's just deception.
I agree.
It's not true. It doesn't register with reality. Mamas, women are not made that way. Women are made to protect and to guard and to die for their babies, not their babies to die for them.
Holy
I know, right? It's almost as bad as this.
The abortionist uses this clamp to grasp an arm or leg. Once he has a firm grip, the abortionist pulls hard in order to tear the limb from the baby's body.
By the way,
one by one, the rest of the limbs are removed, along with the intestines, the spine, and the heart and lungs.
Okay, but it gets way worse. They crush the head and suck it down. That is how abortions are performed. So you may take someone who has a Southern, and I understand it. If you take anyone who's not from the South and you throw a Southern accent, they're not going to believe a single thing that person says. Period. It's just, they can be like, hey, listen, the sky is blue. I think she's wrong because of the way she said that.
What do you think he was reacting to the fact that she said that mamas would actually prefer to die for their babies than babies for their mamas? Is that his reaction?
I'm so glad that you would ask because the empirical evidence would suggest she's right. The fact is women aren't built that way. Study in Finland found that women are possibly 6 times more likely to commit suicide after an abortion. Okay, and how often do we hear about in the animal kingdom? When do, take a mammal, any mammal, including, by the way, human beings, okay? When do women become most aggressive? When protecting their young. And we say it as though it sounds absurd. Women are designed to give birth and protect their young. That is true. They aren't designed to have it chopped up and sucked down a tube. It doesn't matter how many times you say it with the lilt in your voice. That's it. We'll get to more statistics regarding abortion and Planned Parenthood and the services they actually offer, which John Oliver is completely misleading about. But let's start with that. Marley was dead to begin with. Let's go next clip.
There are now 2,700 pregnancy centers in America compared to less than 1,700 abortion providers. And the discrepancy is even worse in certain states. Mississippi, for example, has 1 abortion clinic and 38 crisis pregnancy centers.
So, here's a big difference, though, too. Most crisis pregnancy centers do not receive government funding, while Planned Parenthood receives over $500 million a year. Now, I'm personally attached, just so are some of our researchers, because my wife works at a crisis pregnancy center. She volunteers at a crisis pregnancy center. I know what they do. It's an entirely volunteer army. They have to do fundraising twice a year with these banquets to make sure that they're still in business, and they compete against a never-ending supply of federal funding. I know none of the money goes to abortions, but really that's their moneymaker at Planned Parenthood, which is why they try to upsell you. We'll get to that later. This is something that people need to understand. It doesn't, by the way, you can have as many Save the Children with Cleft Palate centers as you want if it's a volunteer center. Planned Parenthood receives, that's a pivotal difference. By the way, I thought they were all just women's health clinics. Why do we differentiate now between abortion providers and crisis pregnancy? It's all women's health.
We need more volunteer abortion doctors.
Yeah, we need more volunteer abortion doctors. Step up to the plate. Be a man. Next clip.
If you believe abortion is immoral, you are, of course, allowed to set up a centre dedicated to convincing women of that. But what is happening with CPCs is that way too often, women with unplanned pregnancies are being actively misled while trying to access health care.
Okay, first off, that's not correct, actually. As a matter of fact, Planned Parenthood doesn't offer any kind of educational programming, if you look at it, other than educating you on how to be upsold to the abortion. I find it so funny. Really, if you want to open up volunteer, that's fine, as long as you provide all the services I want you to provide. He's bitching that these other crisis pregnancy centers, which provide contraception, which provide they provide consultants there, they provide counseling, they help with nannying services, they help with single mother services. They even help you, by the way, they're not all conservative organizations, they even help you with welfare programs and what you're eligible for. He is saying that, well, that's not really okay because they don't provide the abortion. So let me make this clear. We're allowed to have our opinion, according to John Oliver and the pro-abortion activists, but we're already paying, by the way, for your Planned Parenthood with our tax dollars, and now these people are volunteering their time and money to offer women other choices, and that's what you're upset about? They're double secret paying with taxes to Planned Parenthood, then paying with their dollars, and volunteering their time to provide alternatives. This is what pisses off the left? Are you Next clip.
And CPCs seem happy to have women confuse them for abortion clinics. Just listen to Abby Johnson, an anti-abortion activist, addressing a conference for one of the largest CPC organizations.
We want to appear neutral on the outside. The best client you ever get is one that thinks they're walking into an abortion clinic, okay? Those are the best clients that could ever walk in your door or call your center. The ones that think you provide abortions.
Wow.
Yes, wow, indeed. Yeah. Why would that be misleading? Do you know? Oh, that's right, you weren't even know. We've had Abby Johnson on this show. Oh. She's not an anti-abortion activist. She's a former director of a Planned Parenthood, okay? He never mentions it ever. And by the way, she's talked about on this show and in her book how to Planned Parenthood, she talked about how they would try to sell women on abortions who didn't even want them, and they would impose abortion quotas because it was their most lucrative product. So she, in the context here, a former director at Planned Parenthood, said the best customer to walk into a Planned Parenthood is someone who will get an abortion who doesn't know that they want an abortion. And then, context, the best person who would walk into our crisis pregnancy center now, which offers everything but abortion, contrast with Planned Parenthood, is someone who thinks they want an abortion. That's the context. Former director? Talking about context, Planned Parenthood, so it's almost as though it changes things. Next clip.
The effort to conceal their true intent takes many forms, starting with the name. Many CPCs have the word choice in their names, like Choices Women's Centre. And while it should be easy to clarify any misconceptions with a simple phone call, that can be difficult. Just listen to what happened when one woman called a CPC for information, and keep in mind when you listen that the centre absolutely, under no circumstances, ever provides abortions.
Humanity.
Good evening, the White Rose. May I help you?
Hi, I was wondering how much you charge for a first trimester abortion?
I really can't. It's not, excuse me, it's the policy that we just like the people to come in and we can discuss then and go forward.
So CPCs can lure women to meet with them on false pretenses.
So? I don't get it. He says, that's horrifying. No, it's not. There's nothing horrifying about it. By the way, what's misleading about using the word choice when they're offering and educating women and assisting with 4 choices? Parenting, adoption, abstinence, contraception. What they mean when they say pro-choice, and that's why I say you're an abortionist, you're not pro-choice, parenting, adoption, abstinence, contraception. You say that we're anti-choice if we don't just provide the 5th one, the killing floor for the baby. Well, you're anti-choice. Well, we agree with 4 choices. Not really. We don't agree with the abstinence. Okay, so to you, it's less extreme to advocate abortion than it is for abstinence. Am I getting this correct? Am I getting this? Am I getting this right?
This is how it goes.
Right? Because you watched an episode of Glee.
Can't believe that. This happens all the time in other marketing anyway. They tell you to click here for a price. Oh, call one of our representatives so that we can talk you into this.
Well, the CPC actually wanted to inform a woman here, this Crisis Pregnancy Center, of her options before she went through with an abortion. This is something else, too. Again, the left always says, well, I think abortion should be limited and it's horrible, but, you know, if someone really needs... Well, no. Right now, this person is just saying, hey, let's inform you of your options.
Yeah.
Before she went through with what we would all agree, even if it's not murder, is probably not the optimal result. So while we're on the topic of false advertising, how about all those things that Planned Parenthood does to trick people into coming into their offices, right? Like falsely claiming they provide mammograms? Here, let's watch this. This is great.
What's going to happen as a result of this, if this bill would ever becomes law, millions of women in this country are going to lose their health care access, not to abortion services, to basic family planning, you know, mammograms.
We do not have mammogram machines at our health centers, and we've never stated that we did.
What? It's almost like you don't even care that you're lying. It's almost as though you're a pathological sociopathic serial killer with babies. It's almost like you just said they would lose basic healthcare services like mammograms, and then said we don't provide mammograms, and we've never said that we've had. I don't understand. I don't follow. And this is why it's so important, too, because they say basic healthcare services, whereas John Oliver just said you have these amount of crisis pregnancy centers and only these amount of abortion clinics, because that's what they do. That's their hot ticket item. That's their Tickle Me Elmo circa 1996, or whatever was a hot Christmas item that year. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Don't fact check me.
The Turbo Man.
You're probably someone who had an abortion. By the way, also falsely advertising prenatal care at Planned Parenthood. They can't help with that. They're not capable, just as they don't have mammogram machines. I bet you a lot of people watching this are surprised by that because you've never heard it before, which brings us on to some more points. Let's go to the next clip.
They often locate themselves as close as possible to abortion clinics.
This woman, who we aren't identifying, speaks candidly about the difficult decision she had to make after becoming pregnant after a rape.
I didn't want the baby. It was a lot on my soul.
Eventually, she decided to seek the services of the Hartford GYN. She initially went for counseling, and she can remember how the clinic's neighbor, Hartford Women's Health, tried to offer unsolicited counsel as well.
They was trying to tug me over there, and I was like, you know, like, you're making me feel bad.
So
now, clearly, that's absolutely horrible.
No, it's not absolutely horrible. What do they? Okay, first off, a couple things that they do. They take an example who was raped. Let's take them at their word here. Right? Less than 1% of abortions performed. Again, wife works at crisis pregnancy. Women come in all the time. They know about contraception. Why? Because it's 2018. It's not a lack of education. They just don't care. They're irresponsible, and they often go in thinking they want an abortion, and then they change their minds. And we'll get to that in a little bit. The ultrasound. That's why Planned Parenthood upcharges for ultrasounds. So unsolicited advice is what they're talking about. Something else, even though they blur the face, I think we can all kind of agree it's not racist to say, seems as though she might be a person of color. People of color are about as likely to be aborted today as they are to be born in the United States. Wow. And that's by design by Margaret Sanger, notorious racist, hated the blacks. So unsolicited advice, these clinics aren't assaulting women, they're offering them free information on a pregnancy. Even with their story, taking the most extreme 1%, taking them at their word, rape victim, right? Minority. All they had was, she was tugging on me, trying to get me to go in and like, it made me feel bad. I'm sorry. I think you're so out of touch that abortion is the baseline that you think that's going to horrify your audience. And most people watch that and go, that seems kind of reasonable. I don't know. Is it me? Give me your comment below. I don't know. Next clip.
And if CPCs can't get a physical location right next to an abortion clinic, they have another trick up their sleeve, and that is buses that can literally park outside and try and tempt women in. Many CPCs operate mobile clinics. Once CPCs have women inside their building or van, they can employ every tactic in the book to try and get them to change their mind.
Every tactic in the book. like science
and information.
So here's the thing. Again, keep in mind, this is why the context matters. These volunteers, right? Volunteers, most of these places. These are people who volunteered their time and their money. Everyone knows what Planned Parenthood is. Everyone knows where to find them, okay? This is because it's what's discussed. When people talk about women's health care, they're talking about Planned Parenthood. The Women's March, Planned Parenthood. When you have people going out there, was it Sandra Fluke or Lena Dunham? They talk about Planned Parenthood. They don't talk, most people don't actually know about other crisis pregnancy centers. It's really, really hard to compete. It'd be like if the government funded Coke and you had an alternative soda, but everyone knows what Coke is.
Yep.
And it receives $500 million in funding. So that's the whole point. They think Planned Parenthood is their only choice. No one talks about Crisis Pregnancy Center, probably because they don't get that kind of a funding. So Oliver here is complaining about them using their own money to advertise so that they can simply find their clinic. Think about that for a second. The complaint now is not only do these places provide these other services, not only are they informative, not only do they provide services that Planned Parenthood does not provide, but they use vans and they have people help with their SEO. Well, what's wrong with that, asshole? Next clip.
Heartbeat International, which has 1,400 affiliates in the US, has this handbook with suggested scripts featuring some nonsense information. It suggests telling pregnant women that 35% of suicidal behaviours among women may be attributable to abortion, which is bullshit. It also says that abortion almost doubles the risk of breast cancer, which is also bullshit.
Okay, so a couple of things here. Notice Oliver never dismisses, well, he dismisses it without really actually providing any kind of a rebuttal.
Right.
Now, some of that information is wrong. And I'll get to that in a second. Yeah, some of this, but he's taking one example of a crisis pregnancy center that provided information that was inaccurate. Now, it wasn't as inaccurate as, say, telling everyone before Congress that you provide mammograms and then saying you never said that you provided mammograms because you don't have the machines. It's not that bad. Because the first claim about suicidal behavior is actually correct. If we're going to go on a macro level, it is correct. It comes from a study published, I think, in the British Journal of Psychiatry that found women's risk for depression went up by 81% after having an abortion. Wow. And I think there was a direct association between suicide and abortion, which increased by about 35%. So that was what now was misquoted by this individual CPC. Yes. Then the stat they're referring to, I think, is a Chinese meta-analysis of 36 studies on abortion for breast cancer, or it increased the risk of breast cancer. To be fair, that's not really an accurate study to go by, showing a link. There's no control group between abortion and breast cancer. So the evidence isn't really clear on that one, and I'm willing to give that one. But John Oliver, didn't even bother to look into it at all, just like the claims from Planned Parenthood. That's the difference between us and people like him. We research, and we say okay, he doesn't. He doesn't even look into it. He has no clue. He reads the headlines and then says, that works. Next clip.
Increasingly, they offer free ultrasounds, which can sound appealing. It's free. But often, they're not performing them so much for medical
free healthcare is a problem
as for emotional manipulation.
All right, as for emotional, here's one thing. When these crisis pregnancy centers offer free alternatives, like women take them. Mm-hmm. Now, here's why he's so pissed off about ultrasounds and why Planned Parenthood has fought ultrasound laws, right? Study found that 78% of women chose to keep their baby after seeing an ultrasound.
Wow.
I actually know where my wife volunteers at crisis pregnancy. It's about an 86% rate of women keeping the baby after having an ultrasound. Now, that's not throwing a Bible at their head. It's not Carrie's mom locking them in the closet saying that God's given her zits because he doesn't want her to eat apple pie. It's not radical Christian fundamentalism. This is a study showing that women see a baby, and 78% of them decide that they want to keep
It's literally
their baby.
just reintroducing the humanity that Planned Parenthood sucked.
It's not an abstract choice anymore. It's an actual person.
And guess what? Without government funding, all they're doing is providing an ultrasound for free. Now, here's one thing. We talk often about wanting to provide healthcare to the poorest among us, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, Google free Planned Parenthood ultrasound cost. They don't. Your first appointment alone costs $150. This is what they write when you search it. It says this covers lab work and ultrasound and options counseling. This fee will be subtracted from the cost of your procedure. Our fees start at $585 and increase depending on your gestational. This is their used car salesman pitch. Just Google Planned Parenthood ultrasound cost. Our fees starting. Notice the difference: $150 versus $585. That's where it starts. Again, read Abby Johnson's book because she talks about how much more money they do with the upcharges at Planned Parenthood. They're assuming that you're going in for an abortion.
Yeah.
If you call now, we'll make these 5 easy payments only 4 easy payments if you suck your baby down a tube. They right now, this is what's crazy to me about John Oliver. He's literally complaining about people offering free health care voluntarily while Planned Parenthood charges these women they charge them $150, bundling it with abortion for a service that they probably could. You think that woman there made me feel bad? You think she's gonna afford $150 for an ultrasound? We talk about common ground. To you, it's offensive to provide a free ultrasound. I don't think we're going to agree on much. Next clip.
For all the lengths that CPCs will go to prevent abortions, many of them don't do a key thing that would really help that, and that's give women access to birth control. If you want fewer abortions, you should love birth control. You should be filling Pez dispensers with birth control pills. You should be giving condoms out to trick-or-treaters and IUD earrings out as hostess gifts. Birth control should be your favorite thing in the whole world.
This is also something I always find funny. It's where you hold a gun to someone's head and say, well, if you don't want to murder a baby, you should provide free condoms. Okay, first off, no, that's not how this works, right? Well, if you don't want to go to prison for murder, then society, we need to provide free apartments. No, it's still a crime. But here's something else that you should note. There are over 13,000 community health centers. Most of them offer contraceptives that women can visit if they'd like those, okay? Again, the place where my wife works, they do. Again, abstinence, parenting, adoption, contraception. These are offered at most of these places. Not all of them, but that's why there are options. It's volunteer. There are options. That's what's so absolutely insane to me. And remember, just to give you context, remember you don't care if they provided birth control or not. You only care that they're not providing abortions. Remember Hobby Lobby, the outrage that happened?
Oh,
they're not providing women's health care is what they said.
Yep.
What it really came down to is not only did their insurance cover women, not only did their insurance in some cases cover procedures for women that they didn't cover for men, not only did they cover 16 kinds of birth control, the problem was they didn't cover what they thought as Christians were abortificants. They covered all of those things and 16 different kinds of birth control, and there were still protests of the entire John Oliver argument. It assumes, by the way, that women are incapable of making an informed choice. He acts as though the mere action of informing them and offering them any other choice is an act of violence or coercion. He acts as though anything other than the baseline of free abortion on demand period is some kind of an act of aggression against women. It's not. This is an example of women who are being offered free healthcare, free, genuine women's healthcare, as he differentiated not just abortion clinics, but prenatal care, all kinds of services, particularly expensive services like ultrasounds that are not offered at Planned Parenthood that they otherwise couldn't afford. We support socialism, John Oliver. We support women's health care, he says. We support free health care. Well, here's a place, a crisis pregnancy center, and there are thousands across the country. Here are places that voluntarily offer prenatal services, ultrasounds, adoptive services, as well as care for both the child and the mother. Let's shut them down due to the wrong point of view. You're not pro-choice. You're just an abortionist. Hey, did you enjoy this video? Here's the thing. You're here. This is the end of it, so we don't care because you already watched it. But if you really didn't like it and you want to justify it, leave a comment below telling us why you didn't like the video. And if you liked us, let us know. And subscribe to the channel, because that lets the overlords at YouTube know that, you know what? You're all right.